What if you were a person trying to find the love of your life during the zombie apocalypse and your only companion was a cat? Well, that scenario right there is actually a story that I want to talk about. Zombie apocalypse shows and movies in the Western world nowadays just don't cut it for me. I used to be such a big fan of this specific topic, but nowadays it's just a bore. I mean, The Walking Dead is a great example of how bad this sort of genre has gotten to. That show should have ended after its first season, honestly. So, when the Western world fails you, you go out there to the foreign lands. Train to Busan, Seoul Station, All of Us Are Dead, High School of the Dead, Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, and many more. These are the best kind of zombie apocalypse movies, shows, animes, and mangas that I could find that I generally enjoy. And most recently, I came across another story that actually got me pretty emotional. And the fact that I got emotional reading a manga meant that right off the bat this story was a 10 out of 10. So if you're tired of reading your typical shonen manga like One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball, or even Black Clover, or even just want something short and sweet, nothing too serious, or even committing yourself to reading a series, well, you're in luck, because I came across a story that you won't forget and something you won't see as just your plain old zombie story. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. As I have stated at the beginning, the story talks about a guy trying to find the love of his life through the zombie apocalypse, and his only true companion at the time is a white cat. Now, what I missed to say at the beginning was that the main character of the story is not the person, but rather the cat. When it comes to the end of the world sort of situations within stories, we always see through the eyes of people, with the animals being there as a companion. But in this instance, the roles are actually reversed, which right off the bat is a pretty interesting thing to see. I guess if you've actually read the title, you would sort of see where the story is going. I mean, the story is called The Walking Cat, a cat-eye view of the zombie apocalypse. If that isn't a straightforward on what the story is going to be about, then I don't know what is. But another thing that I really liked was the fact that the story is split into 3 different sections, which leads right to 3 manga volumes, which in a way makes sense. The creator of the story was smart to do this because if you think about it, it's not your ordinary zombie apocalypse story. In a lot of cases, animals like pets get around, mostly cats, and cats have their own little adventure when they are with many different people. The creator of this story managed to implement that aspect of cats and make it into a story where the zombie apocalypse is happening. And since cats can't talk and aren't as intelligent as humans, it makes sense for the story to lean in towards more to the people that takes care of the cat rather than just the cat itself. And I will say that these 3 stories that involve the people taking care of the cat is pretty heavy, both in an emotional and physics sort of state that makes you really consider things. I'm going to try my best to summarize these 3 main stories within this video, but I definitely recommend you go check out this manga. I was lucky to find a 3 story in 1 manga set, and you might be too. But without further ado, let's get right into the first story. The story starts off with us getting introductions to our 2 main characters for this section of the story. A white cat is chasing a rat through the woods until a few zombies manage to acquire the rat and rip it up. Very soon the cat is surrounded by these zombies and it was about to be eaten until a person comes around and saves the cat from it being food. The 2 end up finding shelter with this old couple hiding out, and this is where the goal of the story shows. The person that saved the cat is Yahiro Jinsan, and he's been trying to find his wife ever since the zombie apocalypse happened. And the cat he saved is named Yuki. Yuki was one of the many cat strays that the old couple took care of before the whole zombie apocalypse came around. Jin got the rest he needed and left, but not before the husband of the old couple put Yuki in his backpack. Seeing how he rescued Yuki from the zombies before and how he could use a bit of company through his journey of trying to find his wife. And that's kind of how it all starts. The story of this first section is mainly focused on the goal of Jin trying to find his wife, but from time to time there will be this short little side story that mainly focuses on Yuki. Like when he finds another cat that he really likes, only to be both rejected and to see that that cat is actually in a relationship with a much bigger cat. And there are many other side stories that just truly involve Yuki only. Some may be serious, but others can have this more of a chill, calm state. And honestly, I'm really down for when there's this calm stateside story that mainly revolves around the cat, because 90% of the story is just this emotional baggage that you gotta carry with you while reading, and even after you're done. And it really makes you think about life in a way. Anyway, in stories that involve the zombie apocalypse, there are two things that they have in common. One is there being a mention of a cure, and the other is there being some sort of location that's supposed to be some sort of safe haven. Which, spoiler alert, in both instances when these two things come into discussion within the story, the cure is sort of a bust. The so-called safe haven is not really so safe after the main character comes into play. Don't expect anything different from this story. Now, the so-called safe haven from these zombies is actually mentioned twice within Yuki and Jin-san's story. The first time is when Yuki actually gets taken by Jin-san by a bunch of kids. They were about to chop up Yuki and turn them into their dinner, until Jin comes to the rescue. But him talking to them wasn't enough until the younger kid of the siblings see what their older siblings are doing, and they sort of see what they've become and let Yuki go. This little side story shows what people have to become in order to survive, no matter how old or young you are, and it's for that reason that Jin-san doesn't really blame them for doing what they have to do. They later mentioned that when their father comes back, they are going to this kind of island that's supposed to be a safe haven away from the zombies, and Jin-san thinks that his wife might be there, but with no location to this island and no true confirmation that she might be there, he continues to try and find her in her place in the city. Now, the next time that the island is mentioned is when Jin-san and Yuki find a doctor. He's trying to find a cure to this whole people becoming zombies problem, like every other doctor in a world where zombies exist. And we later learn that he actually knows Jin-san's wife, and tells him that the last time they had contact, she said she was going back to her place. With all that said, he takes a car and goes to her place, only to find out that she's not there. Thankfully, she left a message for Jin just in case he ever came looking for her at her place. The message says to come find her at the island, with the island being circled on the map, with Jin-san having the relief that she's still alive, and with an actual destination to go to, they go forth on their journey. Now, this next part of the story of Jin and Yuki is actually the last one, because after this, things aren't exactly going to be the same. And I still think about this ending of this first section of the story, and it still pisses me off every time. Jin and Yuki manage to get to the docks where they need to acquire a boat in order to get to the island. The only problem is that there are dozens of zombies swarming that area. The only way to get a boat is to rush through the zombies, which Jin knows is a dangerous task. So he tucks in Yuki in his backpack and bolts through the swarm of zombies. He actually almost manages to make it until one zombie manages to grab the backpack where Yuki is in. Jin now has to make a choice. He could make it on his own since the boat was right there, but he would have to leave Yuki. He had to make a difficult choice. The next scene we get is Yuki coming out of the bag with Jin helping him out. They had made it to the island, but Jin had actually gotten bit, which means he was going to turn into a zombie very soon. He leaves Yuki on the island and takes the boat far away. As Yuki meows for Jin to come back, the last scene we see of Jin is him slowly turning into a zombie, with his veins showing and his eyes turning dark red, and telling Yuki to live on. And that is the end of this first section of the story. Now, out of the 3 sections of the Walking Cat story, this one by far hit me on an emotional level pretty hard. After all of that, Jin just turns into a zombie. It sucks, and I hate it, but on the other hand, it's the most realistic ending. Jin being able to save Yuki unhurt when all those zombies were hurtling over the bag Yuki was in wouldn't really make any sense. And a part of me knew when reading that Jin was probably not going to make it. But still, this ending hurt a lot. And the fact that he made it on the island only to leave Yuki so he could live on was something. I guess in a way, the story shows that everyone's not going to get a happy ending, especially in these sort of situations. But just because Jin is gone does not mean that this story is over. And with Yuki on the island, the next section of this 3-part story continues. We get introduced to our next main character of this story, Karu. She is one of the many survivors that managed to get on the island safely, and everyone there is managing to make a better life for themselves. Kaoru finds Yuki on the beach side of the island close to death, so she takes him to the group hoping that the doctor could help him out. And after a while, Yuki manages to get much more better. As a matter of fact, the kids that tried to make Yuki their dinner before in the Jin-san story, they managed to get onto the island safely, and actually recognize Yuki and states to everyone that this is his name. Now, unlike the first section of the story, this is not so much on the journey and adventure side, seeing how the island is basically a sanctuary away from the zombies. This section of the story is more on the personality side of people in general and how they would feel and act within this certain situation. For example, other than people just playing their part within the group, Kaoru has a bit of a situation that involves her mother. Seeing how when she was a kid, her mom walked out on her and she moved on with another guy. She happens to get on the island, and even though they both acknowledge each other, they don't really talk to each other. Kaoru tries to get as far away as she can away from her mother, seeing how she doesn't really want to end up like her. So yeah, it's more towards this communication along with people being people in the zombie apocalypse sort of story. I'll just say this right now, this aspect of the story is not really my sort of taste. As for Yuki, he's just playing his role as a cat, walking around, getting people who at first glance aren't really fond of Yuki, but they manage to come around. And he manages to play a role as someone that guards the food from mice. But there is this one aspect of the section of the story that calls back to the last one. You see, Jin's wife is one of the survivors on the island, and every time she goes out with the group that goes out for supplies, she tries to find him. When she goes with the group this time for supplies, she actually finds the boat that Jin was on and finds his backpack with a picture of him and her. And at that point, her along with everyone with her realizes that Jin did not make it. The only one that doesn't really want to believe it is, well, Jin's wife. And it really sucks. It just reminds us of how close Jin was towards his goal. Now, the real serious part of the story comes in two parts. One revolving around Kaoru and her mom, and the other just involving everyone on the island. Kaoru learns that her mom is being abused by her husband, and when she tries to confront her and tell her to just believe him, she bundles up a bunch of excuses to defend him. The only time when she gets a reality check that her husband doesn't really love her is when he leaves her to die when the zombie come over. Oh wait, did I say zombie? I meant zombies, as in plural. Like I said at the beginning, there's no such thing as a safe haven in the zombie apocalypse, because at the end of the day, the zombies are going to get to you one way or another. The way the zombies manage to get in the island though is through a little girl. A mom and her infected daughter comes on a boat on the island hoping it was deserted, but of course it wasn't, and one thing led to another, and one person got infected, then another, and the next thing you know, 95% of the survivors on the island become zombies. And I did not care for any one of them. I'm gonna make this clear, I had no real emotional attachment to any of the characters in this second story other than Yuki. The characters are just not on the same level as Jin. And maybe it's the fact that Yuki and Jin had this crazy adventure trying to survive when zombies were coming at them, while in this story it's more towards on how people act when they're safer away from the zombies. I don't really know. But just because I want to be done with this section of the story, let's move on. Kaoru grabs her mom and tries to get her to a boat so they can escape the zombies. That is until Yuki falls down a hill and gets stuck. There's a fire happening that's burning down the forest area of the island, and it doesn't really take long for that fire to catch up to them. Kaoru wants to go and save Yuki, but it's too late. A burst of flames spew out, and it seems like Yuki is dead. With nothing else to do, the group of survivors head to the boat and leave the island where they can hopefully start a new life away from all of this. And you would think that that section of the story would end just like that, but not before showing that Yuki is actually alive and was rescued by one of the survivors that came by a boat. And that's where the section of that story ends. We are now on the final section of this 3-part story, and this one I actually really like since it's like the first section with Jin. It has that adventure taste, except that there's much more people involved now. But hey, if you're liking the video so far, why don't you like and subscribe to the channel? I plan to do more videos like this in the future, and hopefully they turn out as great as this one. The final section of this story starts off with the aftermath of the whole island incident, with the zombies swarming the islands and Yuki being in the care of another person. His name is Futa, and he actually has a thing for cats, seeing how he had one when he was a kid. But sadly, him and his cat got separated when this whole zombie thing happened. As of right now, he's sort of in a pickle. He just lost the one person he cared about, Lisa, seeing how she became a zombie. There are no more boats, so he can't go to other land. All he can do now is survive with what's left around, taking all the stuff that was left behind during the escape from zombies. After what seems like forever and him starting to lose hope, he sees a raft in the distance with people in it. But it turns out those people got turned into zombies, and the raft was heading into his direction. He devises a plan with Yuki to get those zombies off the raft so he could take it, and he almost made it. That is before a zombie comes out of nowhere and bites his arm. In a desperate attempt to not turn into a zombie, he cuts off his arm, bandages it up, and with all the strength he has left, he rows like hell to the other side of land. I'm gonna say this right now, this kid is a beast. This is just the introduction phase of the story, and he's already gone through so much. Anyway, he makes it to the shore and passes out. He ends up getting saved by this group of kids around his age, Ian, Caleb, and G, and they all got acquainted with each other. Futa tells them about the island and how he lost his hand. It does not take long though for G to start asking questions about Yuki. At first she's not down with the cat being a part of the group until Yuki saves them from a cockroach. At that point, everyone is down with Yuki, and they all journey forth into the unknown. Now, with no goal or really destination in mind, they are just mindlessly walking through the woods, hoping to find someplace safe. And throughout their journey, we get a better understanding on the characters around us. And at first, there's no major flaw or warning about the group that Yuki and Futa is with. That is until they find another person that seems to be hurt. Futa wants to help that person, but everyone else is not down. Well, Ian, Caleb, and G's instincts were right not to help that guy because it turns out it was a trap. Thankfully, they managed to escape and take down the guys to try to take their stuff. And one thing they made sure to do was cut their legs so they could not walk so that the zombies could get them. Soon after, they make it very clear to Futa that all adults are the same, and they should not be trusted. Now, once I heard this, I had a feeling that this was going to be a problem for many reasons. One, because the way they are thinking has so many holes. You don't trust adults because you've had a bad experience with them doesn't really make any sense, because you're eventually going to turn into adults. When you become an adult, are you just not going to trust other adults and only trust kids? Like, I don't really get it. But anyway, let's continue. They all managed to find a pretty well barricaded place from the outside that's owned by an old man with a peg leg. They asked if they could stay, but he was like, nah fam. They managed to convince the man for them to stay for at least 3 days before leaving, and just as they were about to enter, Caleb tells everyone that that guy is the peg leg killer. Before the zombie apocalypse, he killed many people, but we later learn in a flashback that that's not the case. It was self-defense. A bunch of employees killed their boss, and he was there at the wrong place at the wrong time. And in self-defense, he took down all those employees. Ian comes up with a plan with everyone else to kill this guy and take this place for themselves, and everyone agreed. But it takes Futa some time to actually go through with this plan. He learns that this guy is actually pretty good, and he actually finds the cat he got separated when this whole zombie apocalypse started. That cat has been under the care of the old man, and because of that, Futa thanks him. And it was that moment right there, when everyone else was going to take down the old man during that night, that changed Futa's perspective on the dude. Caleb got taken down easy, but Ian stabbed the guy with the knife through his hand. It was up to Futa to get the killing blow, but he didn't take it. He just went straight to his cat. At that point, Ian lost it and said that Futa betrayed them. He was about to go and kill him until the old man told everyone to get out, or else he would crack Caleb's skull. They all left except for Futa, who was welcomed much more, although he did get to say his goodbyes to the group and thank them for all they have done for him. 9 months have passed after that time, and a lot of things have changed. Futa has a prosthetic arm, Yuki has kids, and everyone else from the past story has sort of moved on with their lives. Futa wants to leave and go find Yuki's owner and tell them that he is fine. And as he leaves, we get a peek of one of Yuki's kids hiding in Futa's backpack as he goes on a new adventure. And just when you think Yuki's adventure is over, Yuki goes over the barricaded wall that's protected his home and nearly gets eaten by zombies. But thankfully another person saves Yuki and his journey continues. At least just for him, because our viewpoint of the story is over. Honestly man, this story is something else. Out of all the mangas I have read, this one by far hits me hard. I got to see so many different stories and adventures all through the viewpoint of an animal, and a cat for that sake. I really don't know what else to say other than this story is a masterpiece, and I'm glad I picked it up. But that's all folks. Just a reminder, I made a Discord server, so if you want to come join and talk to me, that's the place to go to. But with all that said and done, good night and Happy New Year's.